I'm Andy the Palm Springs Linguist. Today I'm going to analyze the linguistics and critique the use of language in the Simpsons episode Trilogy of Error. While Homer, Lisa, and Bart wander around Springfield, I'm going to wander around Palm Springs. Trilogy of Error is a unique old-school Simpsons episode in which the same story is told 3 different times, but each time the story is told from a different character's perspective. It starts out with Homer's day, then Lisa's day, and then finally Bart's day. In the episode, Marge accidentally cuts off Homer's thumb, and they both head to the hospital to get Homer's thumb reattached to his hand. Then, the mayhem begins.
Meet Linguo, the grammar robot. I built him all by myself. If you misuse language, he'll correct you.
Well, let's put him to the test. Me love beer.
I love beer.
Oh, he loves beer. Here, little fella.
Dad, no!
Also, Lisa makes a robot named Linguo for a science project. Linguo is a robot that corrects bad grammar. In linguistics, there are 2 opposing viewpoints, prescriptivism and descriptivism. The concept of Linguo, the grammar-correcting robot, is prescriptivist. Prescriptivism is the notion that there is a correct standard of a language all speakers should aspire to, and if you don't speak to that standard, you're making a grammatical error. It's Linguo's job, if he hears such an error, to correct it. This is very anti-linguistics. Linguists are descriptivists, not prescriptivists. A descriptivist doesn't judge the way you speak, but rather seeks to understand why you said what you said because they want to figure out the linguistic logic you used to generate the utterance in the first place. Okay, let's take a look at some interesting linguistic moments in the episode.
Say that Bart did it! Doodlebugs.
My Ferrari! I had to do awful things to pay for her.
Old English had grammatical gender, which means that every noun used to be categorized as masculine, feminine, or neuter. Grammatical gender no longer exists in modern English, except occasionally when referring to a ship or a car. Notice that the character Wolfcastle said, "My Ferrari. I had to do awful things to pay for her." He didn't say, "I had to do awful things to pay for it." An antecedent of a pronoun is the noun phrase that came before that the pronoun is referring to. The antecedent of the feminine pronoun her is Wolfcastle's Ferrari. So this is one of the few contexts that English speakers sometimes attribute a grammatical gender to a non-living object. Spanish is a language that still has grammatical gender. In Spanish, there is no equivalent to the pronoun it. You're forced to choose between the Spanish words for him or her. In Spanish, book is a masculine noun, so a conversation could go like this. "Where did you put the book?" "I put him on the table," with the antecedent of him being the book because book is a masculine noun. Wolfcastle is a character modeled after Arnold Schwarzenegger, whose first language is German. German has a couple words for car. Das Auto, which is a neuter noun, or der Wagen, which is a masculine noun. Notice that Wolfcastle didn't use the pronoun it or him to refer to car. So this is not an example of Wolfcastle's German affecting his English. In English, cars can be referred to as her or it, but not him. For more information on grammatical gender, watch the video, 5 Small Details That Make a Big Difference in Other Languages.
Sorry, Homer. Your HMO doesn't cover this type of injury.
But I have finger insurance.
A thumb is not a finger.
A thumb not being a finger is a bit of a stretch. The Spanish language uses the same word for fingers and toes. The word is dedo. Think of it more like the English word digit. In fact, a colloquial way in Spanish to say thumb is dedo gordo, which literally means fat finger. So try convincing someone speaking Spanish that a thumb is not a finger. However, some people do argue that humans have 5 digits on a hand, but only 4 fingers, because they're counting a thumb as a digit, but not as a finger. Again, I think this is a bit of a stretch, but if you have any expertise in anatomy, let me know down in the comment section below.
Thanks, Mo.
Hey, ain't you gonna have a beer?
Is ain't even a word? After all, there's the childhood chant, ain't say ain't 'cause ain't a word. Well, what is a word anyhow? Well, he said it, and you understood it. That's pretty much the test of whether something is a word. Now, I certainly wouldn't use ain't in a formal situation because it is considered non-standard English, but it's definitely a word. Using ain't is definitely informal, and this makes sense since Moe speaks to Homer in a very casual way.
I gotta get to Dr. Nix.
As for pronunciation, there are strong forms and weak forms of words and phrases. The strong form is what you say when you stress the word and when you enunciate very slowly and deliberately. However, in normal conversation, you're more likely to use a weak form of a word. For example, I would have gone, I would have gone, I would have gone. All three of these are the same sentence, just at different levels of being strong or weak. Homer said, I gotta get to Dr. Nix. A stronger form is, I got to get to Dr. Nix. And an even stronger form is, I have got to get to Dr. Nix. By using a weak form, I gotta get to Dr. Nix, the writers have been able to make this sound like natural conversation. All these characters are in a hurry, and it would sound really out of place for them to use a strong form.
Hey, somebody done stolen my wheel.
In the verb phrase, done stolted, done is being used as an auxiliary verb, much like would, could, should, have, and is, among others. Auxiliary verbs provide information such as the tense, mood, and or aspect of the verb. Done is an auxiliary verb used in African American vernacular English and in some varieties of Southern American English. While Cletus is not African American, he is Southern, so it makes sense that he might use this grammatical pattern. Done communicates the perfective aspect, which just simply means that the action of the verb is completed. Somebody done stoled my wheels means that somebody has completed the action of stealing my wheels. The writers probably had Cletus use done as an auxiliary verb to reinforce that his character comes from the South. This is an example of character building through grammar choices.
Hey, thanks for stopping.
Tain't nothing.
Tain't is a contraction of it ain't. This is very similar to the beginning of a very famous Christmas poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas. 'Twas the night before Christmas. Here, 'twas is a contraction of it was, just like tain't is a contraction of it ain't. Of course, the level of formality is completely different. Tain't is considered non-standard English, but it's definitely a contraction and it's definitely a word.
If anyone ever tells you a hog won't need a finger, they's lying.
I find they's lying really interesting. They's is a contraction of they is. Of course, in standard English, this would be they are, not they is. When Cletus said they's lion, the antecedent he was referring to is anyone, which is singular. They's lion is an example of using they as a singular pronoun, not a plural pronoun. The pronoun singular, they, has gotten a lot of press in recent times because some non-binary people prefer to be referred to as they in the third person rather than he or she. Singular they is not new. It's been in the language for centuries. It's just gotten little attention until recently. While it may not have been used to refer to a non-binary person, it has been used for centuries to refer to someone whose gender is unknown. Imagine someone just rang the doorbell. You don't know whether it was a man or a woman. You go to open the door and you say, "Someone rang the doorbell," and they left a package on the doorstep. Singular they sounds perfectly normal in this situation. So the choice of singular they doesn't really stand out to me. But the subject-verb agreement does. Cletus said, they is, not they are. While they is non-standard, they is actually makes logical sense. If English speakers said they are when they is plural, and they is when they is singular, then in these contexts, there would be no confusion between singular and plural they. You could determine whether they is singular or plural based on the subject-verb agreement. Of course, Cletus is rather unique in making this distinction, and saying they are with both singular and plural subjects is consistent with the pronoun you. After all, we say you are regardless of whether you is singular or plural. Nobody says you is. Not even when you is singular. So even though English speakers have the opportunity to make subject-verb agreement clarify whether the subject is singular or plural, there is consistency between you and they.
Oh, crap! It's on fire!
Inflammable means flammable? What a country!
The character Dr. Nick's first language isn't English, and so it completely makes sense that he would be the one to call us English speakers out for such illogical vocabulary. It's easy to look at the word inflammable and break it apart as the prefix in, meaning not, and the base word flammable. Therefore, you would think it means not flammable. But that's not how the word inflammable was created. Its base word is the verb inflame. So in this case, in is not a prefix at all, but rather just part of the base word. The word inflammable is supposed to be analyzed as able to inflame. The pair of words flammable and inflammable look like they should be opposites, but they're actually synonyms, meaning the exact same thing, much like regardless and irregardless, which I know is upsetting to some of you. This catastrophe of spreading a fire could have been avoided entirely if they used the word non-flammable instead. I love that the writers chose a character who we know's first language is not English to make this joke. English learners often look at the English language more objectively than native speakers, since they can compare and contrast how English works with how their native language works, which can cause them to ask some very smart questions about how English works.
Almost done. Just lay still.
Lie still.
I knew that.
Okay. The difference between lay and lie is of transitivity. There are two types of verbs. Transitive verbs, which require an object. Lay is a transitive verb. You have to lay something. You can't just lay. Intransitive verb phrases do not have objects. So you can't lie something, you just lie. This is a grammatical pattern that many well-educated proficient English speakers get confused by. I think the writers made a great choice having Lisa make this grammar error because Lisa is a character who's very articulate and loves grammar. So if she's going to make a grammar error, it's going to be one that even well-educated speakers make. For more info on the lay-lie distinction, watch my video, 6 grammatical distinctions that are dying off.
I knew that. Just testing.
Sentence fragment.
Sentence fragment is also a sentence fragment.
Must conserve battery power.
Just come on.
This idea that we should always speak in complete sentences isn't the way that people actually speak. It may be a good guideline when you're writing, but in speech, it really isn't necessary. There are times when we only say a sentence fragment because we expect the listener to infer the part we left off. When you're not sure what you're supposed to infer, then that's when you ask a question.
Idiot, you almost ran over a viewer, and she's in our key demo. Sorry about that, kid.
Clipped words are shorter versions of longer words. Ad is a clipped word for advertisement. Gas is a clipped word for gasoline. Here, demo is a clipped word for demographic.
What?
La grenouille mange les pamplemousses.
La grenouille mange la pamplemousse.
This sentence is French for the frog eats the grapefruit. English only has a single definite article, the word the, but French has 3. Le for masculine nouns, la for feminine nouns, and les for plural nouns of any gender. To me, it sounded like the teacher said les pamplemousses, which means the grapefruits, which is the plural version. However, when the student said the sentence, to me it sounded like they said la pamplemousse, using the singular feminine definite article la. The noun for grapefruit, pamplemousse, is masculine, so the student should have said le pamplemousse. I wonder if the error was done on purpose to just make it look silly. If you think I misheard it and they really said le pamplemousse, let me know in the comment section below. Okay, this sentence means the frog eats the grapefruit. Frog is a well-known pejorative term for a French person, and according to Urban Dictionary, calling someone a grapefruit in French is an insult. So this is the joke behind the frog eats the grapefruit. If you're a French speaker and can shed light on what it means to call someone a pamplemousse, please let me know in the comment section below.
You're at West Springfield Elementary School.
West Springfield? I'm at the wrong school.
En français.
Okay, this is super funny. Different languages do indeed characterize sounds like laughter differently. So I love how this episode is shedding light on this fact.
Gas. I couldn't figure out this stupid Italian gas gauge.
Oh,
It's always fun to see fake foreign words. In this case, these words are supposed to be Italian. Not so bad is obviously meant to look like an Italian word. It's a fake word meant to be comprehensible to English speakers. The writers chose mamma mia for low on fuel. English speakers have heard this phrase before, so most English speakers will get the joke that mamma mia, you're in trouble for running low on gas. The middle word is not so bad. The writers did a good job making up not so bad because it includes two actual features of Italian phonology. It has a double consonant, dd, typical of Italian words, and the word ends in a vowel, which is far more likely to happen in Italian than in English. Both of these features fit the rules of Italian phonology beautifully, even though this word is clearly just an Italianized version of English words. The writers chose abbondanza for the gas tank being full. Abbondanza is a real Italian word, which means abundance. Cognates are words in two different languages that look similar or sound similar and mean the same thing. Abbondanza and abundance are cognates. So even though this is a real Italian word, most English speakers will understand it.
Abracadabra!
Ha ha! Dang, you can be one of them TV magic queers.
Well, that didn't age well. But we have to keep in mind that this episode originally was broadcast in 2001. If the Simpsons writers were writing this today, I doubt they would have used the word queer. But what I want to point out linguistically is the use of the word them as a non-standard demonstrative. You could be one of them TV magic queers. A demonstrative is a type of word, such as a determiner or pronoun, that is used to point out something. In standard English, the demonstratives are this, that, these, and those. So in standard English, you would say, you could be one of those TV magic queers. Them, as a demonstrative, is heard in African American vernacular English, Appalachian English, and some varieties of Southern American English. Again, the writers probably wrote in this use of them as a demonstrative to reinforce that the character Cletus is from the South.
Fat Tony, is that you? Fat Tony?
Hey, where's that voice coming from?
This guy's wearing a wire.
Take him out.
When people hear the inflectional ending ing pronounced as the informal or regional version in, they think of it as leaving off the G. Thinking becomes thinkin'. Walking becomes walkin'. Wearing becomes wearin'. On a written level, yes, you leave off the G. But on an oral level, that's not what is happening at all. There are not any fewer sounds. The number of sounds is exactly the same, but they're different sounds. In the formal version, ing, the ng represent a single sound, a velar nasal consonant. You put the back of your tongue on the soft palate as if you were pronouncing a G, but you pronounce the ng sound with some air coming out of your nose. In the informal version, wearin, the n apostrophe represents a regular n sound. There's also a change of vowel. In wearing, the I represents a long E sound, like the first sound in eagle, wear-ing. In wearin, the I represents a short I sound, like the first sound in igloo.
You ain't going nowhere. You leave those boys alone.
This sentence has a double negative with both ain't and nowhere. It's a myth that English doesn't have double negatives, or that double negatives always lead to confusion. First of all, when this character said, "You ain't going nowhere," there is no confusion. It's clear that this means you are not going anywhere. In English, we can use context and stress to make it clear. You're not going nowhere is different than you're not going nowhere. The former means you're not going anywhere, but the latter means that you are going somewhere because it's not true that you're going nowhere. Of course, in formal standard English, we would replace nowhere with anywhere to say you're not going anywhere. This idea that a double negative is illogical falls apart when you look at languages such as French and Spanish, where double negatives is completely normal, even in formal language. You're not going nowhere and you're not going anywhere are both translated exactly the same in Spanish. No vas a ninguna parte. Now I want to hear from you. What use of language in The Simpsons stands out to you? Put your thoughts in the comments section below. I make videos on a wide variety of linguistic topics, often exploring the California desert where I live and places I travel to. If you enjoyed this episode, please click like and subscribe right now to not miss any future episodes of the Palm Springs Linguist. Okay, that episode was a lot of fun. I think that the Simpsons writers did a really great job of paying attention to the linguistic details to develop the characters and move the plot along. I'm Andy the Palm Springs Linguist. I hope you enjoyed this trip across Springfield and across Palm Springs. Until next time, I'm off to the pool.